Hey guys, what is up? You've probably heard me talk about trying to take my game to the next level, and I've mentioned in the past analyzing the performance of players like G9, B-dubs, and maybe to only a slightly lesser extent, players like Mocha or Project Goof, and really trying to understand why are they so much better than everyone else, including me. And not only trying to understand that, but try to take the actual practical step of, once I understand what they're doing differently, try to incorporate elements of what they're doing into my game so that I can be better. And I have to say, man, like, it has helped a lot. Like, it's been shocking just how much better I've gotten in the last month or so. And I know I've shown some clips of my improved playing, but what I wanted to do today was actually break it down for you and show you some of the analysis that I've done, the things that I've learned, and then show you how that applies to my gameplay. I can't promise that this will help everyone. A lot of people watching this may look and say, well, duh, and you may have known this for a long time, but for me, it was really an eye-opening exercise. For this current invasion, I just want to draw your attention right here. If the host or the phantom progresses beyond that point, it will actually aggro the lycanthropes behind me, or not both of them, but the one by the bonfire. And because most people don't come this way, they usually come the other way to grab the Estus shard. They're not aware of his huge aggro range, but his aggro range is only huge in this one direction. So when you've got a party like this where they're standing on top of each other, that's a really useful way to try to get them separated. You can see the host is just kind of backpedaling. I'm actually going to have a little more to say about backpedaling here in a few minutes, but going for way too many parries made that really predictable. I'm able to get the punish, get the Undead Hunter charm. Undead Hunter charms are huge. They're not always useful. I think Nif has made the point that it can sometimes cause people to just run away. And in those situations, I agree. But this guy's not going to want to run away. He wants to stay by his phantom. And he makes the mistake of trying to Estus while he was still charmed. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to show you some clips from some fights that B-dubs had. And try to draw some lessons about what he's doing. But in order to do that, I want to show off a little bit of some fights that I had. So this fight here against this red, I'm sure all of you have had this experience where you're able to get somebody caught in just a massive roll catch chain over and over, and they just keep panic rolling. And this is really satisfying to do. I think I get them like 7 different times. But only like the noobiest of noobs is going to fall for this over and over. Most players will correctly, they'll course correct. So let's watch how B-dubs handle situations like this. I'm going to play it once at full speed and then again in slow motion so we can look and do some analysis of what he's doing. So the first thing to note is he runs up and his opponent always rolls and panic rolls when he does that. So he waits, roll catches on reaction with the PKCS, then swings again quickly. Note that that was not a roll catch. That was to protect him against the hyper armor of the exile weapon. And notice that his opponent did try to swing and he caught him right at the startup frames. And here, I think that was actually a backstab attempt, not a roll catch attempt, but I could be wrong about that. He understands that you can't just always assume your opponent's going to panic roll. And there again, that was an attempt to keep him from swinging on him. And there, I think he just assumed he was going to panic roll. It was the first time he didn't panic roll right there. Okay, so he hits him with a running attack right here, and then immediately R1's out of it. Knows his opponent's going to panic roll after that, so he waits for it and catches it. Now he's expecting him to panic roll again, I think. He doesn't have a hyper armor weapon, so he no longer has to worry about losing a trade really badly. But there you see his opponent went for the Cestus. B-dubs didn't miss it. Goes for the weapon art to punish the parry attempt and ended up blowing all of his stamina. And so now he has to wait and actually ends up getting roll caught, I think because the spear is so slow one-handed. So here's an example of me trying to leverage some of the lessons that I've learned. Unfortunately, this is my twink character, which I end up feeling a little bit badly about. But you can see I'm able to keep really good pressure, and that was a spacing mistake on my part there. I think that's the only time I get hit in this fight. I space out the weapon art that I know is coming, wait for the roll catch, and this time I know my opponent's good enough. He's not going to panic roll again. Instead he tries to swing, and so I swing early to interrupt him. And you see here my opponent is backpedaling, and the conclusion I've drawn about backpedaling is opponents do that when they're overwhelmed. They can't process what you're doing. They haven't figured out how to react to you. You're essentially blowing them out of the water, and that's their protective mechanism. It's an attempt to slow down so they can start to understand what you're doing to them. And here I feel badly because I've got the Hornet ring on. I didn't mean to do that, and sorry to this guy. It actually seemed like he was a good opponent. He just wasn't equipped to deal with my curved sword. Incidentally, there's a couple other things that I just share with you. They're not really totally relevant, but there's some things I figured out. One is that Skitter was right. The Chloranthy ring is super insanely valuable. I've been playing on my non-twink character who doesn't have a lot of rings, so he's got the Chloranthy ring on because I didn't have anything else. And then I went to my twink character and I couldn't figure out why I was constantly running out of stamina, and I realized it was because of the Chloranthy ring. It really makes a difference when you're trying to play aggressively. If you're not playing aggressively, it doesn't matter. And that's why I couldn't understand why Skitter found it so valuable. So now it is a regular part of my builds, and usually I actually use it in place of the Hornet ring these days. Buffs are insanely important at low level. When you buff your weapon, you are probably going to effectively double the AR of most of the smaller weapons. You really want to utilize buffs at low level. This guy's obviously using the Dragon Slayer axe with lightning bundles. He's twinked out. This is my non-twink character. That makes his axe hurt a hell of a lot, and it's super dangerous. Another thing that I've done, and there I saw him backing off, and I realized he was going to try to cure the poison, but I didn't recognize it early enough. So I don't make that mistake again. The next time I see him start backing off to cure it, I stay right on his ass. I also increased the camera speed. I cranked the camera speed up so that I could quickly flip and look behind me when I was being chased down. And it didn't take me very long to adjust. Just like a matter of like an hour or so. The one thing though that it has screwed up, and there he almost got me with a parry. That was a close call, but it screwed up my free aim fire bombs. My free aim fire bombs still have not totally recovered. They're a lot less accurate these days because of that change. Oof, that's so much damage. So my opponent makes an interesting adjustment here. He starts attacking me immediately after he blocks my attacks. He just did it to me there. I haven't figured it out yet, though. He's going to do it to me one more time, and then I'm going to realize what he's doing, and I'm going to make the appropriate adjustment. I've been experimenting a lot more with different attack timings, spamming, even against people with parry shields, and there he finally gets a lucky parry against me. Of course he has the Hornet ring. Of course he swaps to the Dark Hand. Fortunately, I had enough health to sustain the parry. And that's one thing, like, if you're in a fight, an invasion where you're healing and the person's spamming parry, you always want to make sure you're at least at half health or above, and that's assuming you're at like 27 vigor, so that you don't get one shot. So here you see I just keep swinging because he wants to block, and then when I stop attacking for fear of a parry, he's going to counterattack. So now I'm adjusting to him, and I'm not going to let him do that to me. Obviously you have to be really careful with that, but the fact that you spam sometimes makes them wonder, and that's going to make them more liable to throw parries out that you can then turn around and punish. When somebody holds their Llewellyn in front of them like this, with any other weapon, I would be kicking a lot more. Obviously with the curved sword, can't really kick at their shield. It's like one thing that kind of sucks. I read the Estus, and I'm able to punish that, but I do kind of wish I could still kick his shields. I'll actually sometimes swap weapons so that I can punish Estus. And there he was expecting me to swing once and then he was going to counterattack. And here I see he's proc poison. I know he's in his inventory backing up, so I pressure him. Then he has to escape from his inventory and kind of panics and swings 3 times and lets me outspace him. In this invasion, there's another invader in the world, and after we arrived, another invader died, so I know they've got the dried fingers up and running in this world. Interestingly, I see either a Phantom or the host. I believe he's the host, has the Pontiff Curve sword, though he has it one-handed. I see him back off there to summon somebody else. And here my lock unscrews up and I end up locking on to the Aldrich, who's actually rocking the Gru spear and the Gru dagger, which is a good setup. And see there, he was expecting me to lay off after that first swing, and he tried to counter swing on me, and that really threw him off of his game, and that's all it took for me to put him in a roll catch chain. Sometimes it's the smallest thing like that that'll get somebody panicking. So I mentioned earlier being willing to experiment, and you'll see actually an experiment that goes awry here, and I, in retrospect, know exactly why it went awry. So this is a typical site in the woods, a totally twinked out host. He's got things like the Dragon Slayer axe, the Dark Hand, the Drake Blood sword. He's using bundles. I'm sure he has all the late game rings. He's also a parry spammer, and every time I swing twice, he parries expecting the third swing. It doesn't matter whether I swing a third time or not. However many times I don't swing a third time, he parries. And unfortunately, I wasn't paying sufficiently close attention to that. So when I went for a mix-up and I went and swung 3 times with my hand axe, he parried me and ended up ending the fight. And that's my mistake for not recognizing the fact that he was always going to parry after that second swing. And what I should have been doing was using that fact to my advantage and running to his back for a backstab when he tried that until he stopped, and then started trying to use that as a mix-up. So lesson learned, but don't be afraid to experiment. The worst thing that can happen is you lose a fight. And even when you do, it's educational and you learn something. This is actually the second time this has happened to me, and where I've swung 3 times and gotten parried, and I intended it as a mix-up. And each time I went back and watched the fight, and sure enough, my opponent had tried to parry every single time I swung twice. So aside from some funny bonus clips that I've included at the very end of the video, this is actually the last clip. This is a pretty lengthy invasion, and I think this goes towards some of the things I've learned about invading and some of the strategies that I've learned to adjust. So you see this host here, he's a backpedaler. Backpedaling is a scarily effective tactic. It makes it very easy for them to know when you're in range of them, especially if they outreach you, which is why you see I immediately switch over to the spear, so he can't do that to me. I thought I spaced out that attack, but he's just going to keep backpedaling and trying to whiff punish. And then, unfortunately, there's enough lag, too, that he's going to trade with me if we swing at the same time, or even if I swing earlier. And mea culpa, I didn't see the Phantom there, and when I went to Estus, I inadvertently threw a bomb, and it almost cost me the invasion right there. So this is a crappy situation. Unfortunately, the watchdog here that spawned is Sarah, and Sarah actually invaded me, and she's really, really good, and unfortunately she happened to be AFK right now. Otherwise, this invasion would have probably been over very, very quickly. But this is a scary situation. The host has a decently damaging weapon. He's got a great shield, so if I get in his face, he can just sit behind the shield. And then obviously this Phantom's over leveled and has an ultra great sword. So this host is never really going to be an initiator. They're just going to stand around and wait for me to make mistakes and then punish me. Again, non-twink, so my backstabs don't do shit for damage. But playing unlocked here adds a lot of value because I'm able to see the Phantom coming up behind me, even though he most likely doesn't expect it. So right about now, I'm trying to formulate a plan for how to deal with these guys, and I'm deliberately standing in the swamp because I'm hoping that it's going to bring in another watchdog to help give me some backup. And every time I make a mistake, I'm getting immediately put inside the blender. And I did not want to try to backstab there, and that obviously cost me like half my health. So now I'm down to 2 Estus. I really haven't done much of anything with these guys. I haven't gotten another watchdog to show up, and I really should have gone for a pivot there. That was a mistake. My roll backstab game has gotten way, way better though. I can frequently get those first swing backstabs on ultras now, and I never used to be able to do that. I always had to wait for the second swing. I think right about now is when I decide, like, I need to find some PvE or some form of backup, because if I just stand out here with these guys, they're just going to bleed out what little of my Estus remains before I can get any kind of backup. So here I'm going to run off to the PvE, or what I hope is some PvE, since most of the main PvE there in the swamp is dead, just to try to get a little bit of relief so both these guys can't be focusing on me at the same time. Just not really relevant to what's happening right now, but I want to direct people's attention to a YouTuber by the name of, he used to go by Fanboy, although he's recently had a name change to Sad Little Slug. He's been uploading clips for quite some time and has recently started doing commentary, and I really, really, really love his gameplay, and his commentary has gotten really good too. Very crisp player, does all the little things right that I personally struggle with and that I don't do very well. His most recent video is text commentary because he's not feeling well, but he has a lot of really cool insights. He has been one of the pioneers. I know Narco was, I think, the original, but he typically uses the main hand Gale and offhand Rapier. And I think to hear him tell it, he'll tell you he's not as good as Narco, and that may well be true. And there's some poor lock-on management on my part, gets me backstabbed. But he's very, very good with it. So if you have any interest in the whole offhand Rapier, main hand Gales meta, be sure to check him out. Even if that's not your bag, it's still really interesting stuff. He's really, really good. I'll be sure to leave a link to his channel and his most recent video in the description. So back to the video, I'm obviously out of Estus. Here I get Undead Hunter Charmed, which actually is awesome, because these guys don't know I'm out of Estus. So now they think the clock's ticking and they need to be aggressive, and they come in here against the Lycanthrope. Had they just thought I was out of Estus, in all probability they would not have come back here. So I'm about to get an Estus delivery, a single Estus. I'm at low enough health now that I'm being really careful here against this guy. I don't want to let up pressure, but I also don't want to overcommit and end up dying. So you see there, I went for 3 roll catches in a row. Actually, I went for a 4th, and he cottoned on to what I was doing, and he made the adjustment. So I'm feeling pretty good about my chances right now, as long as I can keep this guy from resummoning. The plunge attack on this spear is awful. I've gone for it a couple times. I've never hit anyone with it. I shouldn't have gone for it. I should have just immediately tried to roll after I fell. That would have been a much smarter idea. And here my heart sinks because there's a blue on the way. So in all probability, I won't be able to stop the host from resummoning. Maybe I can kill the blue, I'm thinking, and pick up 2 Estus. My plan right now is to pressure the host as much as I can until the blue can arrive and maybe get lucky and put him away. But you can see the host right now, he's in total reaction mode. He's not trying to attack me, he's just trying to avoid me. And he's done that a couple times, and that's something I've kind of filed away and I'll be thinking about later, and you'll see it kind of plays a role later. And unfortunately, this blue is not incompetent. He has some ideas about how to PvP. And as long as he's keeping me under pressure with these pyros, there's really nothing I can do, in my view, to get after the host. And unfortunately there, because of the bad latency, even though I did a rolling attack against him, he was still able to trade with me with a simple R1. I was pretty proud of my spacing on that charged R2. The host thought he could come in and punish me, but I was watching the whole time. Playing unlock, so important. So he sees reaction rolling again. So now I hit him with the L1 wiggle, and even somebody who's reaction rolling, generally speaking, you hit them with one waggle and panic roll catch them, and then they'll keep panic rolling. I was really fortunate to win that fight. Well, guys, thanks so much for checking in. Enjoy the outtakes I've got coming up. Take care now.